Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020. Or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. The Ace goes 7-inning shutout and gets the win. It is a good evening to you, and how you be? William Haynes here, you there, here at 10:09 here on this Wednesday night. This Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show is live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. Back-to-back wins for the Tampa Bay Rays tonight. It was a 2-0 win over the Oakland Athletics. The Rays get back over 500 at 13-12 as we are now 25 games into this long season. The Rays now lead this series as well, 2-1, and they'll have a chance to take what I would consider a rare 4-game series victory tomorrow afternoon, about 12 or 14 hours from now at 1 o'clock in Tropicana Field. It is going to be Shane McClanahan making, I guess, what you would say his regular season debut. His Major League debut came a season ago in the playoffs, and he had a couple of outings, including in the World Series in the postseason of last year. And it looks like he's going to be ready to start outright, not behind an opener. He could go maybe 4 or 5 innings tomorrow. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the show, because of course, what we have to talk about now is another Rays win, 2-0. It was the 4th shutout already for the Rays this season, which a number that seems a bit high. And that was obviously made possible in part to Tyler Glasnow in his 6th start of the year, probably the second best start of the season for him. He gets the win. He's now 3-1. But 7-inning shutout, 10 strikeouts, only 2 walks. Had a couple of moments where he lost control. He got into a couple of jams, I would say, but was able to get out of them essentially every time, and he looked terrific. The curveball and the slider did not look as sharp as it has maybe in the past, and I think those pitches came in passing throughout the middle of the game. It seemed like he did not have it early. He had it in the middle, and then towards the end of the start, it seemed like he kind of lost it again. And it seemed like maybe he was working through some mechanical issues at times, and that's really what we've been talking about with Glasnow this year, is even when things are working against you, whether you're cramping up all over the place like he was in New York, or you give up a 5-run first inning, or anything like that. And every single time this season, Glasnow has been able to bounce back from that. And if it was not for his performance tonight, who knows what direction this game goes. It's a nightly thing, but another questionable bullpen decision as well, with Jeffrey Springs pitching a perfect 8th 8th, and then Cash brings him on to start the 9th, and he puts or allows, I guess, the tying run to reach the plate, and Diego Castillo, getting a couple of outs, locks it down for his 6th save of the year, and back-to-back games with a save for him, and I think he's looked pretty good. We were concerned about him, of course, because he hadn't pitched in about a week going into last night, but in back-to-back days, 2 pretty strong outings. Don't know if he'd be available tomorrow. I don't think Springs would be either, so they may need some decent innings from McClanahan tomorrow, because the bullpen is not in terrific shape as we stand right now. And before we go completely into tonight's win, I just want to touch on something from last night. I know a lot was made out of it. It was in the newspaper. They were talking about it on the pregame. In the 6th inning of yesterday's win, that pop fly off the bat of Mitch Moreland, there was a runner at third base with 1 out in the 6th for the Athletics, and the game was tied 1-1, and it was basically hit right to true left, and Arozarena was under it, and obviously in that situation, it's a sac fly spot, so you want to try and catch the ball and get the throw home as quick as possible. And we know over the years how great Kevin Kiermaier has been at gunning down runners. When you're one of the best defensive outfielders in Major League Baseball, it's not just the sprinting, diving catches, it's also your ability to throw runners out and everything that goes into playing center field. And so the ball was hit basically right to Arozarena. It was popped kind of straight up, so there was a lot of time for an adjustment to be made. And Kiermaier, I guess after the fact, he had to run over 100 feet to his right to go get that baseball. And I guess he was trying to call off Randy Arozarena, and Randy kind of stayed put as he was, like I said, the ball was hit right to him. And Kevin Kiermaier ends up having to jump in front of Randy. I mean, that ball could have completely just gone awry if he wasn't able to make the catches. They kind of collided over there and left, and so his body is the momentum is carrying him away from the play, and so he's not able to make an extremely quality throw home. And Randy looked very upset after the play, and we mentioned it just very kind of briefly on the show because I kind of wanted to wait to see the kind of aftermath and how everyone would respond to it. We got a quote from Tompkin on Twitter in the Zoom room, and a lot was made of that. But I sat down after the show yesterday, and Kevin Kiermaier did. It was, I think, a 7 or 8 minute interview alone post-game, just talking about that one play. And I think what most people were taking away from it was Kevin Kiermaier used the phrase, "I always tell my outfielders that, if I can get over there, I'm going to make the play," etc. And we kind of touched on that as just Kevin Kiermaier. It's difficult because we love him because he's the outlaw, right? Because he makes plays that no one else can make, and really just plays that no one else is gutsy enough to make. He's willing to take risks out there and do crazy things because he knows that he's incredibly talented, but there's times where, if he makes a diving attempt and the ball gets away and it's a triple instead of a single, or like you saw last night where, Randy, he was there. He could have made a quality throw home, but instead Kiermaier kind of basically takes that ability to make that play away. And so, but what I took out of that interview most, and what I kind of wanted to sound off on as far as that, and then we'll kind of put it to bed because it seems like everyone has kind of moved on. But later in that interview yesterday, Kevin Kiermaier was saying basically that he said if the game was, the Rays were leading 3-1, 4-1, directly quote from him, it wouldn't even be in my mind to make that play. It was the fact that it was tied 1-1, and he said specifically verbatim, word for word, that because the team was not playing well, I needed to make a play. And that was something that we touched on last night, and now because I knew that was what he was going to say, but I was just kind of waiting for him to come out and say it. I'm kind of surprised that he just did put it so point blank. And I think that's right in line with his struggles at the plate over the course of his career. I really like what he's doing at the dish right now. He's on an incredible stretch since coming off the injured list, and he goes 0 for 4 with the strikeout tonight. So, or rather 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. Sorry, but that he puts it on himself, and I've always called it just kind of trying to be Superman, making just trying to do too much. If he could just kind of stay in that modest approach at the plate or, in the outfield, if he could have just let Randy make that play. Sometimes you got to trust your teammates, of course, and he wants to put it all on himself. He's kind of the self-proclaimed leader of the team, and I'm not trying to do a takedown of Kiermaier here. He's one of my favorite players, and for most of Rays fans, I think they would agree with that sentiment. But to me, that's just not a good thing. I mean, it's a team sport for a reason, and why he feels that he needs to take it upon himself to do things like that he feels like, I guess, whether the team wins or loses kind of hinges on whether or not he's making those plays, to me is just quite frankly ridiculous. I know he's the longest tenured Ray by far. He's been on the team since the end of 2013. No other Ray has been here since 2018, so by far and away the longest tenured Ray. And I suppose that's where those kind of feelings come from, because he was there at the end of the Joe Madden days and all that stuff. And so maybe, he feels like he's responsible for I guess, this run that the Rays have been on the last 3 or 4 years, whatever. Kevin Cash, before the game today, basically came out and said it's not a big deal, obviously underplaying it, as we've never really seen any kind of drama with this team, especially under Kevin Cash. It seems like I said, everything's underplayed. This team traditionally has had really good chemistry, and Randy Arozarena before the game as well, saying that there's no hard feelings. No problemo was the quote from him, obviously, because he does his interviews in Spanish, and they had the translator with him to do it into English. So it seemed, just hearing it straight from him as well, you could tell either he was underplaying a little bit or it's genuinely not an issue. And of course, they talked that out and everything, but he didn't look happy at the time. And I thought that's kind of a spot where things can go awry. Thankfully, the team has won the last 2 nights, because winning basically always seems to put that away, or in kind of the back burner of things. So we'll kind of see how that moves along. And also interesting just to see how unapologetic Kevin Kiermaier was, because he said, and this is always something I get a kick out of when people say is, if I could go back and do it again, I would. And that's basically what he expressed. So there was not any kind of there was no lack of conviction with what he was saying and backing up what he did. So we've already discussed it this year. Is he going to get traded? There's no way he finishes his contract here in Tampa Bay, but it seems like it's almost things like that are probably expediting his eventual departure. And the day he leaves, I think that game will be kind of a topic of conversation, as maybe that's where things started. I think after the World Series last year, after Game 6, he kind of alluded that he didn't like the decision to pull Blake Snell. So kind of like Blake Snell as well. A little outspoken. That's not necessarily what the Rays want. They want kind of younger guys that will just fall in line in the system. So I'm interested to see kind of how this plays out. But it looks like for now, it's not going to be an issue, and all sides kind of put it to bed. So I just wanted to sound off and give you guys my point of view, because it's a long season, but narratives like that don't come around very often. So I guess you might as well kind of cover them and discuss them when they do come up. And we'll spend the rest of the show talking tonight's win and previewing tomorrow's game, as well, as we're just about 14 hours or so away from first pitch tomorrow. Anyone listening, if you want to call the show and talk Rays, certainly we would love for that to happen. We have a line open. Number to call, 877-566-1020. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, maybe take some phone calls and talk more Rays and tonight's win. So don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
HBC. And at 10:22 on this Wednesday night, we return on the William Haynes Show. Again, number to call the show, 877-566-1020. And we'll take your calls right until the end of the show if you want to talk Rays. But tonight's 2-0 win over what was going in the American League best Oakland A's. Now it's the Boston Red Sox, number one in the AL. But they dropped the A's to 15-10. The Rays improved back over 500 to 13-12. The Rays now lead this series 2-1. They have a potential to win the series tomorrow, or at the worst case, it'll be a series tie in the 4-game series. In 2 hours and 45 minutes and in front of a paid attendance of 3,374 at Tropicana Field. It was the Rays, 2 runs on 8 hits, no errors for them, and then for the Oakland A's getting shut out on 7 hits and no errors defensively for them either. So it seemed like both these teams were getting about the same amount of opportunities. Tyler Glasnow certainly did give the Athletics chances to kind of deal the knockout punch, but that blow never came, as time and time again it was really Tyler Glasnow delivering that blow, where there would be first and second with 2 outs, shut that down, leadoff walk, shut that down. Later in the game there was runners at the corners with 2 outs, shut that down. So those were where the threats came from, and it seemed like his control wasn't completely perfect, but it was certainly there when they needed it. It was Tyler Glasnow getting his 3rd win of the year. In his 6th start, he is now 3-1, 7 innings shutout on 10 strikeouts and 2 walks. Total, he threw 97 pitches, got 67 over for strikes, and in the 27 men that he faced, he threw a first pitch strike to 19 of them. And that's absolutely when Glasnow is at his best. Getting the loss for the A's, Cole Irvin, who I thought pitched pretty well. Over 6 innings, he allowed just 2 runs, but again, does get the loss. And getting the save for the second straight night is Diego Castillo. He gets a couple of outs at the end of the game, and I believe he is now 6 for 8 on the season in save opportunities. And going into the year, he was tasked with kind of that highest leverage role. And most of the time, maybe 80% of the time or so, it seems like he comes up in those big spots, which is certainly a good thing to see. The offensive struggles that we've been discussing lately, nothing has really changed. They go 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position tonight and leave 7 men on base. I believe right now they're in a 2 for 36 stretch, so 2 of their last 36 as far as at-bats with runners in scoring position. We talk about it all the time. They are top 5 in the majors with plate appearances with runners in scoring position, which, by the way, runners in scoring position, also known as RISP. It's just an at-bat where there's at least one runner at second or third base, because if you get a hit there, you're probably driving in at least a run, depending on the situation. But they are bottom 5 in the majors with batting average with runners in scoring position. So they're getting more opportunities than anyone in baseball, and they're squandering those opportunities more than any other team, which is the frustration because, it's too late. You can't look back now. You just have to move forward. But at 13-12, which is not a terrible record in its own right, but it could be a lot better if they could have just improved in those opportunities. You think about some of those games in the sweep in Boston. They lost a 4-game series to Texas. So a lot of meat left on the bone as far as games that could have been won. And a night where they only scored 2 runs, you were pretty much going to need, obviously, a shutout or just 1 run allowed. They already collect their 4th shutout of the year, and mostly in part to Glasnow's brilliance. As far as the American League East standings are not concerned, with the Red Sox win tonight, the Rays stand pat at 3 games back in second place of the Red Sox at 16-9. The Red Sox have won 3 straight. The Blue Jays lose tonight, so they drop to third place at 11-11. The Yankees, they are on a pretty nice stretch here, winning some games. They're now 11-13, and they're 4.5 games back. So, as much struggles as the Rays have had, I think they're still in a good situation. I don't think anyone would come out and say that what the Boston Red Sox are doing right now is incredibly sustainable over the course of a full season. They don't have a lot of depth, particularly with the pitching side, and I didn't think their pitchers were that good coming in. They've been playing good so far, so who knows if that continues. So while the Rays are just 1 game above .500 and at 13-12. They are certainly within striking distance of first place, and basically by April's end, they'll probably be within 2 or 3 games of first, which if you had told me that on April 1st that was going to be the case, I wouldn't have complained. I would have assumed that maybe the Yankees got off to some kind of nice start or whatever, but this is the situation that the Rays have been dealt, and I think overall they're going to come on out the other side of this month feeling pretty okay, and they could be a couple games over 500 by that time, which would certainly be ideal. Looking at the lineup tonight, defensively, first in the outfield from left to right, it was Margot in left, Kiermaier in center, Brett Phillips in right, and then in the infield from third to first, it was Yandy Diaz at third, Willy Adames at shortstop, Mike Brasso at second, Yoshi Tsutsugo at first, Mike Zunino did the catching, and the DH was Randy Arozarena. So this is a stretch where the Rays have been seeing a lot of lefty starters. The A's starter, Cole Irvin, obviously a left-handed thrower, so they go more heavy with the righty bats. So Willy Adames, as predicted, was back in the order. It seems like he's almost in a platoon right now with Joey Wendell at shortstop, which is a bit strange. He has not been playing like the everyday guy that we expected, but maybe that's in part due to this stretch where they're playing 30 games in 31 days and things like that they want to keep him fresh. For the long run, a couple of guys that, Kevin Cash getting in the lineup today, like Yoshi Tsutsugo, who has not been playing a lot against these lefties. He does play against a lefty tonight. And basically Cash's reasoning is he just wanted Yoshi in there tonight to keep him fresh because they are going to be seeing a lot of right-handers coming up, and they're going to want that righty-lefty. Yoshi tonight goes 0 for 3 with 3 swinging strikeouts, so I don't know what you want to say about that, but he didn't look incredibly sharp at the plate. He's put together a couple of nice games before tonight, but I don't know if you don't really say regression when you're talking about 3 at-bats, but certainly did not look like the guy that he was trending towards in his past handful of games. And then the outfield, they go with kind of they're calling it the no-fly zone. Basically, you got 3 center fielders out there, Margot and Phillips in the corners, and of course Kiermaier out there in center. And then, Brandon Lau getting the night off. He did get a pinch hit appearance, and he walked in there. And Lau, he's not giving you any reason to really play him, especially against lefties right now. So Brasso gets the nod at second base, and everything was pretty much as expected. They are going pretty much every other day with these catchers, so it'll be Mejia one day, Zunino the next, and back to Mejia, so on and so forth. And that's the way that it's been going. Can't believe I'm 23 minutes into the show, and I have yet to mention that Mike Zunino is leading the team in home runs with 5. Do you believe it? That's insane. And he basically hit the game-winning hit as his solo home run in the 5th gave the Rays a 1-0 lead, and obviously with the shutout, they never looked back. They put up both of those runs in the 5th inning as well. It was a 2-out rally, 2 outs, bases empty, Zunino home run, and then walk and 2 singles to get another run on the board. And also about Zunino's home run, I'm not going to go through like all the StatCast stuff, but it went 466 feet to center. It hit off the C ring of Tropicana Field. It was probably the biggest mammoth of a blast that we've seen this year, at least from the Rays. I know he had another long bomb at the end of a blowout, that 14-7 game in Kansas City. And just how crazy is that to say that we're 25 games into the year, and Zunino is alone with the team lead in home runs with 5 big ones. So that's great to see right now. He was hitting a lot of home runs, or I guess for him at least, a lot of home runs in the playoffs last year, and we were wondering and certainly hoping that that would continue into this season. I don't think he's like the catcher of the future or anything. I think at most that the Rays may pick up his option for next year, but if Mejia continues the way he does, that might not even be the case. But think about this for a second as well, and part of this, the dynamic of how this offense works, not just throughout this team's franchise history, all 23 years the catcher position has plagued this team, but really this run, 2018 to the present, the catcher spot has really been an issue, at least in the lineup. They've had some good defensive catchers. Really, half a season of Travis d'Arnaud was all that they had to the contrary. But now, they have the most productive catcher group, I would say, probably in the majors, and just a microcosm of that. Last night, Mejia goes 3 for 4 with 2 doubles, and then the very next night, Mike Zunino gets you a home run and basically the go-ahead and game-winning hit. So no matter if it's, and Zunino finishes the night 2 for 3 with a single in there as well and gets to second base on a wild pitch. So no matter who you've got in there, it seems to be working. Mejia had caught, I think, his last 2 or 3 starts, so it seemed like maybe that was going in the direction. But Zunino is great at catching everyone. Really, both of those guys are. I think it really just is on that every other day rotation is where they're at right now. You know, Zunino and Mejia will catch probably both 3 games a week, and you go from there maybe until someone proves to be the front runner. But until then, you just ride the wave of what you're getting right now, because runs are tough to come by for this Rays team right now. So if you're getting them from the catcher spot, certainly you take that. We talk all the time about, you know, where the offense is coming from. And last night, everyone but one, so 8 of the 9 hitters got a hit last night. Tonight, it was just a couple of guys with multi-hits. Margot, Yandy, and Zunino all had 2 hits. And outside of that, Phillips 1 for 2, Arozarena 1 for 2, and that was it. The rest of the guys putting up zeros in the hit column. So I guess kind of coming in spurts, and it was the bottom of the order that got all the scoring tonight done. The solo home run for Zunino, the 8-hitter. Phillips, the 9-man, walks, a single from Randy, and Margot with a single as well. That gave them, I guess, in the 5th inning, if you can call it that, an insurance run. That made it 2-0, and Manuel Margot, I think, the only Ray in the last 2 nights with a hit with runners in scoring position back-to-back nights. Actually, no, it was Wendell last night, and he was not in the lineup tonight. He did come in late in the game as a defensive replacement at third base, but I digress. The way that the lineup was ordered, Randy Arozarena led off for the 2nd time this year, backed up by Margot at 2. Mike Brasso batted 3rd. Yandy Diaz, the cleanup hitter. Kiermaier 5th. Adames 6th. And a 7-8-9 of Yoshi Tsutsugo, Mike Zunino, and Brett Phillips. So this is kind of what this lineup has become against lefties, at least. Randy to lead off, and they were stacking the righties there early. Margot at 2, which you don't usually see. Brasso, who has batted at the top lately, he bats 3rd, as I said. Yandy Diaz as the cleanup hitter, I'm not loving it, and we'll talk about that as the show goes on. He's really kind of locked in as like a 1 or 2 hitter, in my opinion. I don't think he works at cleanup. I don't think he works at, you know, the 5 or 6 spot that they had him at last night, because he does one thing well, and pretty much one thing only for Yandy Diaz we're talking about, which is he just sees pitches better than anyone. He takes more pitches outside the zone more than anyone in baseball, and he swings at more strikes basically more than anyone in baseball. So he's got a terrific batting eye, but he's pretty much just a singles hitter, and he does walk a ton as well. He's batting .250 and an on-base of .400, so he's getting on base 40% of the time, but he's slow, and outside of that, he's just not a good base runner. He made an absolutely boneheaded mistake here tonight, which came in the 4th inning. He had a 1-out single, and then Kiermaier flied out to center. Yandy forgot how many outs there was, and he got, double off at first base. And I would be a little bit more forgiving, but 25 games in, that's not even the first time Yandy has done that this year. So just for a guy that's on base more than anyone in the lineup, I wish he was a better base runner, because there's not really much you can do with him. If he comes up with a man on first, he's pretty much just walking to move them over to second. So that's what I mean as far as a cleanup hitter. If he comes on with first and second and 2 outs, he's probably just going to walk, and that loads the bases. Well, that's not what your cleanup hitter's job. What are you just, pushing it off to the 5 hitter? And I understand if the walk is there, you take it. But if that's what he's going to be doing, then put it in the leadoff spot, so you can at least have guys like Arozarena, Margot, and then maybe when they come on a little bit more, Meadows and Lau behind them, because maybe a double, if you're lucky, scores him from first. So, and there are obviously homers as well to drive him in, because Homers have been few and far between, and especially with runners on base. It seems like a lot of solo shots this year. So maybe that's another thing as well. Let's just get some guys on base and then hit the home run afterwards. And then outside of that, I mean, Kiermaier, he'll really bat anywhere. I don't know that they're going to bat him leadoff again anytime soon. It was just kind of a one-time thing to get the spark. He's fine in the 5th spot. And then the bottom of the order is as you would expect. Adames at the bottom. Yoshi at 7, I think, is a good spot for him right now. And Zunino at 8. And Phillips, I think. I like him as a 9-hitter as well because you can get him on base and then maybe have a Rosarena or whoever coming up, maybe even Yandy with him on base. So I like the way that was structured. We'll go 1 through 9, and we'll start with Randy Arozarena first. Randy DHing, so he got kind of the half day off today. Did not have to play the field, and I guess an opportune time, to not have him next to Kiermaier in the outfield of Tropicana Field for 9 innings. But he goes 1 for 4 tonight with a strikeout. His average is right at 300. His getting on base at a 357 clip, a slugging of 444. So all those numbers that you would look at, it's all still good. Took a tough leadoff at bat against Cole Irvin, and Irvin was really kind of carving the Rays up there early. Took just a 3-pitch strikeout, and he went down looking as well. Irvin was, 89, 90 mile an hour 4-seams, but really dotting them on the corners, working inside, outside, but mostly at the bottom, and he was fooling a lot of guys there early. So he struck out looking in a poor at-bat to lead off the game, and that's what we talk about as well is the leadoff hitter's job is make the guy uncomfortable, and certainly Kiermaier did that last night with the leadoff triple off the very first pitch of the game, or of that half inning at least, as obviously the home team bats second. But either way, after that, he grounded out to shortstop with a runner at second and 1 out, so that was his opportunity with runners in scoring position, and he actually did get another one. He goes 0 for 2 there tonight, which unfortunate to see. He got another opportunity in the 5th inning, and he actually did hit a single there. So I think that's wrong. I think he got a hit in the 5th inning with a man on first, and that made it 1st and 3rd with 2 outs, and he did not end up coming across to score. And then in the 3rd inning, that's where So in the 7th inning, runner on second with 2 outs, and he grounds out again. So at least he was putting the ball in play with men on base, but and some hard ground balls in there as well. But you hit one to Matt Chapman and one to who was the A's shortstop tonight, Vimael Machine, and it's not going to get you anywhere. But I applaud him because that's where most of his hits come from. It's just hard hit ground balls in the gap that gets him singles. So I'm okay with that tonight, but you would hope that, especially if he's going to hit leadoff and he's coming up in those spots, you would want him driving some runs in. Just did not get the opportunity to come through there tonight. Manny Margot, he played left field and was fine, I think, defensively. He goes 2 for 4 tonight with a run batted in. 247 average on the season for him and on base of 300, so he's not getting walked a ton, but he's been terrific with the bat, and a lot of extra base hits for him, and including one that came in the 1st inning, a 1-out double. But you hold it against him. I don't know. I guess it's his mistake. He was caught between 2nd and 3rd, I guess, trying to kind of steal there. But the situation didn't make much sense. Runner at second with 2 outs. Okay, if you steal 3rd, what does that do for you? With 2 outs, the sacrifice play is off. I guess if they wanted to do like a squeeze, a suicide or sacrifice squeeze, you need the runner at 3rd. That's the only thing I could think of. But you got Yandy Diaz at the plate, who, 1, I don't think I've ever seen him bunt, and 2, even if he does lay it down, I don't think he's getting to first base in time because obviously you would just go to first with the out with 2 outs. So I think it's what you would, I guess, I'd call a high risk, low reward, because it doesn't do anything if he gets over to 3rd. I know that the Rays have been trying to run a lot as of late to try and spark something, but that decision just didn't make sense. I don't know if that was on Margot or if it was on third base coach Rodney Linares, but he did get caught there in a rough spot, and he gets basically caught stealing, or however you want to say it, for the final out of the 1st inning. So at least give Yandy a chance there. And Yandy, who, by the way, did hit a single in his at-bat the very next inning. So it's like, well, you play the what-if game. It was kind of unfortunate. And that was the reason I spent so much time on that, is because that was really the only action for Margot that we saw tonight. He did fly out to left with a runner on second in the third. He hit that RBI single in the fifth. It was, I believe, runners at the corners with 2 outs. Let me verify that that's the case. Runners at the corners with 2 outs, and then on a 0-1 pitch, and really a terrific kind of situational baseball, and I wish more guys in this order would do this. Where Cole Irvin was kind of finding some success was he would pitch outside to righties and kind of get some weak ground balls, because I guess guys trying to pull the baseball or whatever, but if it's outside, you're not pulling that pitch. But Margot, he went with it. He just kind of stuck the bat out there, and as a right-handed hitter, went the other way and shot a single into right field. And with a runner, at third and 2 outs, drives in a run that made it 2-0, gave them an insurance run that certainly they needed, because it got kind of hairy there with a couple of men on there in the ninth for the A's. So that helped. It did come through there, and he's been clutch, I think, overall this year, and he puts up a multi-hit game, 2 for 4. I'm pleased with that performance, absolutely, and then grounded out to start the 8th inning, and that was his day. Batting in the 3 spot, Mike Brasso. Mikey playing second base tonight. Played fine, did not get a ton of opportunities, to be perfectly honest. Every opportunity he could, Willy Adames was cutting him off for ground balls, which even when it's Brandon Lau, Willy Adames is still kind of doing that, which I don't have a problem with. It's just kind of funny to watch a ground ball that's going right to Brasso, and you just see Adames screaming in from shortstop to make the play. Most of the time it works, but it's kind of amusing. So Brasso's left to, I guess, produce on the offensive end. 0 for 3 tonight, no walks and 1 strikeout. His average is now down under the Mendoza line at 196, but an on-base percentage of 268, which is not good either, but at least much better than his batting average. And he struck out with a man on second in the first, flew out to right to start the fourth, and he popped it up with runners at first and second in the fifth, after that insurance run driven in by Margot. So came up in 2 opportunities with runners in scoring position, and then he was pinch hit for in the 8th inning by Brandon Lau, who worked a 1-out walk in the 8th inning. So that was Brasso's night. 3 at-bats, 2 with runners in scoring position, and he finishes 0 for 3 on the night. Yandy Diaz batting cleanup and playing some third base. He's looked pretty decent over there. I would say is certainly improved defensively. He went 2 for 4 on the night with no walks and a strikeout. He's batting right now .250 and on base of .400, as we mentioned earlier. He hit a leadoff single in the second to get on base, and they didn't do anything with that. He hit another single with 1 out and base empty in the 4th, and that was where he got doubled off, because with 1 out, he's standing at first, the fly out for Kiermaier, and he's just running off of contact because he thinks it's 2 outs and gets easily doubled off at first base, so that was frustrating. Struck out to start the 6th and grounded out, but did move a runner over doing so in the 8th inning, so a productive out, I guess, there. So 3 out of the 4 at-bats, I guess, productive, if you could call it that. And doesn't strike out a lot, putting the ball in play at least, and getting walked a fair amount too, although none tonight, but works terrific at-bats. So I already kind of said why I don't like him at cleanup. I prefer him at leadoff, in the leadoff spot. Arozarena is certainly more electric offensively, but I just want my leadoff guy getting on base, and I guess maybe the argument as well is Yandy has been kind of a horrific base runner. He does not slide particularly well either, so there's not a ton that you can do with him. He'll get on first, but what do you do after that? So Kevin Kiermaier batting 5th tonight in center field, made an absolutely terrific catch. I don't recall. I want to say it was in the 7th inning. I think it was, yeah. It was either Machine or Garcia hit like what would have been, a double off the wall, and it thankfully Tropicana Field is a pitcher's park, and it held it. And Kiermaier went running back, made an over-the-shoulder catch. I mean, we've seen guys like Meadows and Arozarena that can't get balls that are kind of hit like in their direction. The Red Sox walked it off on a similar play that Arozarena couldn't make an over-the-shoulder catch. Well, Kiermaier here tonight absolutely did make that catch. And I guess to give you the I guess the PG-13 version of what Glasnow said, because they showed it on Bally Sports Son, and he was, a mother lover. He always, never a MF in doubt, something like that. I mean, he was really hyped up about that catch, and I say that about Kiermaier tonight because even when he goes 0 for 3, he's still giving you a ton of value on the defensive end, and funny that catch came the night after, of course, that 6th inning yesterday, and so Kiermaier always loving to prove his worth, and he certainly did that on defense tonight. Definitely check out John Boy because he does all the lip reading stuff. He'll probably put something out about that Glasnow play, and I'll link it on Twitter at WHBC official, by the way. But Kiermaier's at bats. He struck out looking with a man on first in the 2nd. He flew out on that play where Diaz got doubled off in the 4th. Struck out in the 6th where Irvin struck out the side, and then flew out to right with a runner on 2nd in the 8th. So was putting the ball in play a couple times and then struck out the other 2. You just got to deal with that. This is saying, ESPN is saying that Kiermaier got walked tonight, but I don't have that in my scorebook. So unless I just mess something up, I think ESPN is wrong there. Batting in the 6th spot, Willie Adames at shortstop, and he played pretty well over there at short tonight. 0 for 4 with no walks and a strikeout. He's batting 173 on the year. I think he's showing some good signs. I mean, he put a fly out to center and a fly out to right tonight, and he is getting really close to some of those home runs. It seemed like he had 3 or 4 different plays in Kansas City where if it wasn't 35 degrees in Kauffman Stadium, they would have been home runs. Kind of the same at Tropicana Field. I disagree right now with some of the people that are saying, he's just inept at Tropicana Field with the lighting and all that. I think he's really shown some good stuff and does not always work good at bats, but I think is really showing something, and I'm hoping he comes through here soon so he could be, a contributor to this offense. Batting in the 7th spot, it was Yoshi Tsutsugo, and not much to say about him tonight. 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. I don't really want to even get too much into it. I would like to just kind of leave it in the past because you start trying to take away stuff like that, and you just kind of get into a bad place. Yoshi, has not gotten off to a good start this year. He's batting 183, but his last few games he has looked good. He's maybe changing the approach. He had a double last night, his 3rd of the year, and starting to kind of look the way I guess maybe he was in Japan where he was so good there. So I'd like to just give him some time on that, and it was fine at first base, I think, and then they made some defensive moves late in the game that moved Yandy over to first, and so he finished with just 3 at-bats on the day and all strikeouts. So didn't have a chance of getting the golden sombrero there tonight. Batting 8th at catcher, Mike Zunino, and he did a terrific job behind the plate, securing strikes, certainly on some called strikes with the curveball and stuff, fastballs as well. Brian Gorman, the home plate umpire, had a wide strike zone for Tyler Glasnow tonight, thankfully. I suppose Zunino flew out to left to start this 3rd, and he hit that game-winning, basically, I'll call it game-winning, solo home run in the 5th inning that went a long, long way. 466 feet, I guess, was the StatCast because it went off the C ring of the Trop, so I guess we'll never know quite how far it really would have gone. But it was a towering blast. I think like 36-degree launch angle and like 120 miles an hour off the bat, if that's even possible. It doesn't even seem like it would be. But he absolutely obliterated that pitch. So that was in the 5th inning with 2 outs, and that was such an interesting situation in the game. I just want to look at the pitch. It was on a 2-2 count, and he just got, that's not even a bad pitch from Cole Irvin. 89, kind of sinker, middle away, and that's a pitch that Zunino chases more than anyone. Well, maybe that's why he chases it, because if he can barrel it up, he's almost took the cover off the baseball. That's really what it looked like. So great for him. He's now leading the team in home runs with 5. By the way, the other extra base hits, Margot hitting his 4th double of the year, and Brett Phillips, spoiler alert, hitting his 3rd double of the season. And that 5th inning was really interesting because I guess in the top of the 5th, Glasnow struck out the side. In the bottom of the 5th, it was 2 outs, bases empty. with the 8-man coming up. Zunino homers 1-0. Then Phillips walks, 2 outs, a man on first. Arroza ran a singles to make it runners at the corners, and then Manuel Margot drove in a run with a single. So it was like they went from 2 outs, bases empty, to all of a sudden up 2-0. And then in the top of the 6th, the very next half inning, Glasnow had 2 outs, bases empty, and it ultimately ended up being runners at second and third with 2 outs. So a single would have tied the game, and then he shut it down, getting Seth Brown to ground out. So that was probably the most exciting part of the game, those kind of 3 half innings, if you will. So that's kind of where most of the action, as it were, came from. And then Zunino singled in the 7th with 1 out and got to second base on a wild pitch. So kind of, nifty base running for him, I suppose, there, as much as you could say about a big guy like Zunino. And as I said, terrific catching Glasnow tonight. Batting 9th, it was Brett Phillips in right field, and he made a nice running catch as well, I believe. On the night, he finishes 1 for 2 with a walk and a strikeout. His batting under 200 at 194, but an on-base of 316. He doubled with 1 out in the 3rd for his 3rd double of the year. He walked following that home run by Zunino in the 5th, and came across to score for the game's other run, and then struck out with a runner either at first or second, depending on where the wild pitch came in the 7th inning, and that was the lineup tonight. Not really much, you would say. I mean, I guess you technically did get production from the top of the order. The leadoff man goes 1 for 4, the 2 hitter goes 2 for 4, and the cleanup hitter goes 2 for 4, but it was kind of that bottom of the order getting it done with the Zunino homer and Phillips as well with a double and that big walk. So we're not going to see a lot of lineups like this. It seems like most of their kind of everyday guys, they have a lot of lefties like Lau, Meadows, and guys like that. So Wendell in that discussion as well. G-Man Choi when he comes back, Setsugo, etc. So this is just kind of a lineup against lefties, and of course you're going to see more righties over the course of a season. So this was just kind of a situational thing, and I guess you would say it ultimately ended up working. I liked the way that the lineup was ordered, but it didn't particularly come through. They go 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position tonight, and I want to say they're on they're 2 for their last 36 at bats with runners in scoring position, which is a horrible, horrible stretch. I believe that's like 0.53 average. They leave another 7 base runners tonight, and in this series against the A's, in Game 1 they go 0 for 5 and leave 8 base runners. Game 2 they go 1 for 12 and leave 10, and tonight they go 1 for 8 and leave 7. So a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of meat left on the bone, but at least they're getting base runners, and really a lot of them. They strike out 10 times and walk only 3 times, so that's not particularly great either, but I give a lot of credit to the A's starter, Colt Irvin. I think they may have really found something decent in him, because he only throws about 89 on the fastball, but he's got terrific location and can get guys on the corners a lot. And so that's never an easy guy to go up against. On the pitching side for the Rays, of course, Tyler Glasnow. How many times can I read off the stat line? 7 innings, scoreless, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts, allows 5 hits over those 7 innings. Throws 97 pitches, so 7 innings, and you stay under that 100 pitch threshold. 67 of the 97 for strikes, and of the 27 batters he faced, threw a first pitch strike to 19 of those 27. So that was great. As we predicted, had a lot of success against this power hitting kind of aggressive right-handed order. I knew he was going to work the fastball a lot, and we said as much yesterday. And the A's, who have struggled to make contact in this series, really just a lot of whiffs. I mean, especially in the early innings, they stood no chance against Glasnow's fastball. It was very lively. For kind of the second, maybe even third straight start, the slider has not really been there. Maybe it's by design, but the location seems off. The slider typically, if you're facing a righty, and you're, Glasnow, the righty pitcher, down and away. But instead, he throws it almost like a changeup. It doesn't have a ton of depth, and it's kind of at the top or in the middle of the zone, and he just takes about 10 miles an hour or so off the pitch. And so it does kind of act in that way, more like a changeup than it does as a slider. You're not chasing the pitch, you're just whiffing it because you can't time it up. And so, again, not only was it not placed maybe where I think it should have been, but it wasn't, didn't have the depth or the movement maybe that it has either. And it's moments like that where sometimes guys will just scrap the pitch if it's not working for him. I hope he stays with it. He threw the changeup quite a bit to lefties, and that was effective. And the curveball, I didn't see a ton of tonight. It was like one of the fewest curveball performances I've seen from him in a while. He's leading the majors in strikeouts on curveballs. Had a nasty one looking there early, I believe, to Matt Chapman in the second. I mean, just buckled him. And again, Brian Gorman, the home plate ump, absolutely opened the what do you call it? The wide strike zone tonight for both guys, but it seemed to benefit Glasnow particularly a little bit more. But that's about all I can say. And again, we talked about the jams that he got in and showing resilience as he has all season. He bends but don't break. He doesn't crumble ever. He's really fighting. So I love to see that, and I look forward to kind of maybe hearing him talk about the stuff. There was certainly some mechanical stuff going on. Over any start for him, he'll kind of lose control at times and walk a man or two in an inning. But when you're able to keep that scoreless and keep the pitch count where it was, because the pitch count, I think, got kind of wild. It was like almost 60 pitches after 3, and ends up throwing just 97 pitches and getting 7 innings of work. So he struck out the side in the 5th inning. I believe that's got to be at least like the 4th time he's done that this year, and that's always really fun to watch. Would love to see an immaculate inning one of these days from Glasnow. If anyone could do it, it's certainly him, and that's all I can say. In his 6th start of the year, as now they make that their 6th way through the rotation. I would say this is probably his 2nd best start of the year. That 7 2/3 scoreless against Texas, I think, will always be out there at least for a while until he maybe goes a little bit further into a game than that, if possible. But I predicted 6 innings on the low side, 7 on the high end, maybe no or 1 run, and you give them the race 7 scoreless, and they probably would not have won. If not for his performance tonight. After that, they bring in with a 2-run lead, because so Glasnow departs, he qualifies for the win, the team's leading, all that good stuff. Springs comes in the 8th inning to face the 1-2-3 hitters, Kana, Olsen, and Laureano. None of them are easy. And it gets them 1-2-3, striking out 2 of them. And so he was really looking, pretty electric there. He gave up a run yesterday. It was a leadoff double, a wild pitch, and then a sac fly to bring him in, and that was the play where Kiermaier and Arozarena collided, actually. So that's kind of interesting. But for him, I don't know that you would point to anything particular and say that, look, this is what he was doing that let him have more success. It was a 3-2 count to Kana, and he just went sinker up and away. The Matt Olson pop out on a 2-1, went slider up and away, or rather up and in to the lefty, and then to Laureano, got him in a 1-2 count, and just got a swing and miss on a changeup. So I guess if anything, you would just say he executed his pitches. For some bizarre reason, Cash decides to bring him in the 9th as well with that 2-0 lead. I don't know if he wanted Springs to get a 6-out save or what. If he came in to face the lefty Moreland, and maybe even the lefty Seth Brown if possible, because there was a lot of lefties in that situation. Maybe that's why they wanted Springs over Castillo, but so that would be my guess. But it did kind of backfire, and it almost really cost them. They pinch hit Jed Lowry for Moreland, so they got the righty on lefty matchup, but Springs got Lowry to ground out, then gave up a single to Matt Chapman, and so they pull him there because at that point the tying run comes to the plate with 1 out. So out comes Springs, in comes Castillo, gives up an infield single to Sean Murphy, who pinch hits for Seth Brown, which that's kind of curious as well because Seth Brown was a lefty, but Sean Murphy did hit the home run off of Castillo yesterday, but it was righty on righty. But obviously, you go with the yesterday home run over righty lefty. So I guess good that he only gave up a single, but at that point it was 1st and 2nd with 1 out and a 2-0 lead. But the bottom of the order strikes out Tony Kemp, and he was working a pretty tough at bat. And then Vimael Machin, who fouled off a lot but was never really in the count, basically grounded out to first base to end the game. So Castillo gets his 6th save, back-to-back nights collecting a save for him, and Springs the 3rd hold of the season for him. Talking about Springs, 1 1/3, a hit, no walks, 2 strikeouts, 27 pitches, 17 strikes, 2 for 5 in the first pitch strike, so he was able to overcome that a little bit. And those 2 outs for Castillo, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, 12 pitches, 9 strikes, 1 for 3 with the first pitch strike. But I mean, his stuff looked on tonight. It was good. So everything worked out. I don't think either Springs or Castillo would probably be available tomorrow. I mean, Castillo, if it's like a legit save situation. But outside of that, I mean, look, you've got Kittredge, who if he's healthy, you haven't used in a while. Ryan Thompson, who got the day off tonight. And so on and so forth. So they've got other guys, and it'll be interesting to see how the pitching is used tomorrow. So with that being said, we turn the page to tomorrow's game. It is going to be at 1:10 p.m. Eastern at the Trop, Rays and A's. It's going to be the right-hander Chris Bassett going for the Athletics, and making his regular season debut, the lefty Shane McClanahan. So going into the game, the Rays announced that they're putting McClanahan on the taxi squad, and they expected to activate him tomorrow. And so that's not going to affect Major League service time or any of that. We've seen them make that move with Patino. I believe they've done it with Honeywell also, although they don't really care, I guess, about using Honeywell's option years at this point. But to the corresponding move that was made, so they're going to activate McClanahan off the taxi squad tomorrow, and they're going to send down Lewis Head. They optioned him to the alternate site. So Lewis Head, I thought it looked really good, but they could always bring him back. But they're saying that McClanahan, I guess, could be here to stay. At least that's what we've heard. Also, some other notes of guys that are kind of rehabbing right now. Cash said Fairbanks was sharp today. He was throwing off the mound, so he's probably getting close, maybe a couple weeks away. Cody Reed with the thumb and Colin McHugh with the back are all doing well enough to at least go on the West Coast road trip with the potential to be activated, which is next week. And Reed and McHugh will both face hitters in Port Charlotte on Thursday, so it looks like they're both coming back pretty sharp as well. Fairbanks, outstanding. I mean, he's the setup man for Castillo. McHugh, I don't know, he has not looked good this year, but I guess he'll probably get another chance. And then, as far as I know, that I believe they were saying that they plan on McClanahan staying for a good amount of time. He's going to start. He turned 24 today, so like another birthday thing. It seems like that's been happening a lot lately. He's not going to open. We don't know how far he's stretched out. I assume along the lines of Patino, like 4 or 5 innings. So they're going to let him go tomorrow, and so I don't know if that means they go to a 6-man rotation. I'm fine if he just replaces Rich Hill in the rotation outright, but I don't know that they're ready to do that right now. And of course, how he looks tomorrow will be very, indicative of how they look to handle things moving forward. Last year in the playoffs, I mean, he showcased that 100-mile-an-hour fastball that had wicked movement, and then a slider off of that was pretty nice as well, I believe about 92 or so. A lot was made of a changeup that he developed, and it seems like everyone is really high on that pitch. Looking back to his 4 outings last year, made his major league debut in Game 1 of the ALDS last season against the Yankees in garbage time. It was a 9-3 game for New York, and he collected just an out, issuing a hit and a walk as well. Faced 3 batters, 15 pitches. Then in Game 3 of the ALDS, in a game that the Rays went on to win 8-4, he pitched he got all 3 outs of the 7th and got the first out of the 8th as well. Pitches an inning and a third, allowing a run on 1 hit, 2 strikeouts, a home run in there as well. Then after that, pitched in Game 6 of the ALCS, in inning 6 and 7 of a game that the Rays went on to lose 7-4. So mostly pitched in playoff losses, but an inning and 2/3, 3 runs on 5 hits, a walk, 2 strikeouts, another home run allowed. And then in Game 3 of the World Series, in the ninth inning and got just the final inning of the game in a game that the Rays lost 6-2. He pitched an inning, no runs on one hit, and seemed like a pretty just normal inning for him there. So it was not spectacular. In his 4 1/3 in October last year, he pitched to an 8.31 ERA. But I do definitely understand that the sample size there is small, and obviously he's got terrific stuff. Just turned 24 years old. He's a first-round pick in 2018 out of USF, so he's a local product as well. 6'1", 200 pounds, the lefty. So look forward to really seeing him some pitch tomorrow and in front of a nice little crowd at the Trop. I know he's going to have his USF coach there. It's probably easy for his family to get over there as well, so that's pretty cool for him. They're saying 4 or 5 innings. So outside of that, I don't know exactly. Maybe you ask someone to go multiple innings, but who? Because Richards pitched an inning yesterday. Do you ask him to get maybe 2 or 3 again? Hunter Strickland can get you 1. So let's say McClanahan gets you 4. You go maybe 1 from Richards, so that gets you through 5. 1 from Strickland, which gets you through 6. 1 from Kittredge, that gets you to 7. Thompson to 8, and then maybe Castillo takes the 9th if they want to do that, because Lewis Head is not going to be available, and that's about it, unless they want to have Jeffrey Springs pitch on a 3 straight, which to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, but McClanahan very well could go more than 4. He could go 5 or even 6. I mean, you'll recall Brendan McKay's Major League debut in 2019. I think he had like a no-hitter going through like 4 innings or so, and I think he finished with 5 innings. So you never know how those things go. If he's like electric, I just don't know what he's going to have a pitch limit, and we don't know what that's going to be. So the bullpen is going to be a little bit stretched out. And moving forward, I mean, they've got the weekend series against the Astros, and then the very next day they're in LA, and they'll have a West Coast road trip. So, the off day is not coming anytime soon. So someone's going to have to eat innings tomorrow, and maybe Richards comes through with maybe 2 or 3, but that's going to be tough for him to do, I think. And then on the Oakland Athletics side, their starter will be Chris Bassett, the 32-year-old right-hander from Toledo, Ohio. Is 2-2 on the year with a .413 earned run average. In his last start, it was against the Baltimore Orioles. He gets the win, 6 innings pitched, 2 runs on 8 hits. 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. He threw 101 pitches. He's not given up a lot of home runs, just 2 long balls in 28 in the 3rd innings of work. But over that stretch, walked 11 and struck out 27. He had a 5-inning start where he walked 5, so it seems like there could be some potential for that, which would be good to see, and that's, of course, always a chance for runs to come from, so I'd love to see that happen. 6 innings of 2 runs against the Tigers, 5 innings of 2 runs against the Diamondbacks, 6 innings of 4 runs against the Dodgers, and 5 1/3 of 3 runs against the Astros. So, not a shutout. I mean, he probably gives up at least 2 runs, and wherever that comes from. More traditional lineup tomorrow. You can have the left-handers in there. I don't know where guys like Lau and Meadows are going to play. They may bat more towards the bottom of the order, but they would be in. So, I would go Randy in left, Kiermaier in center, Meadows in right maybe, and then the infield, Wendell at 3rd, Adames at short, Lau at 2nd. Maybe if you want to go, probably Yandy at 1st, DH Yoshi, and they'll have the Mejia to catch, and so that's how I would do things, but I have no idea what order those will come in because Cash has been mixing things up like crazy. So a game tomorrow at 1:10. We will be on the air after the game, so it'll be kind of another early evening show, and we look forward to that. We'll be on the air, maybe take some of your phone calls then. Thanks for everyone to checking out the program tonight, whether you were catching us from the Rays Discord, the Rays Reddit. If you don't want to wait for the link to go out there and you want to get it straight from the get-go, if you follow the show on Twitter, at WHBC Official, the link goes straight out there as soon as we go live, so you can catch us from the beginning. Or subscribe on Spreaker.com, where you're listening to the show right now. That's another way to do that. So, again, we thank you for listening. We look forward to being on tomorrow after the game early evening. Hopefully the Rays win. We'll see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC